welcome to tonight's video recap. We hope you enjoy everything that we're bringing to you tonight.
Isabel English and Feldau Mouse were the first combination in the arena for the dressage phase of the CCIO 4-star SAP Cup at Aachen. This was the Nations Cup event, and Isabel, the trailblazer for the Australian team at 8:30 in the morning, scored 34.4 penalties to be in 33rd place after the dressage as she headed into the show jumping phase for Australia. Next out for the Australians was Christopher Burton. Chris had two horses at Aachen. He rode Polystar that we see here in the teams event, and he also rode Quality Purdy as an individual. Chris, a very experienced rider for Australia on the global stage. He was a member of our eventing team at the London 2012 and Rio 2016 Olympics, and was also part of our last 3 World Equestrian Games eventing teams. Chris has some really exciting horses coming through, and these 2 horses look very fit and ready for the action at Aachen. With Polystar, he finished in 7th after the dressage on a score of 26.4 for the Australian team, and with Quality Purdy, he finished 14th after the dressage on a score of 27. Next out for Australia was Kevin McNabb and Wollonga. Kevin is a very experienced rider that has been based in England for some time now, around 7 years. His wife Emma is also a very successful eventing rider, having represented Australia at the World Equestrian Games in 2018. Kevin's horse Wollonga is a very stylish black horse, and they were an exciting combination in the dressage. Really nice in the extended trot. This horse not as experienced as some of the other horses here at Aachen, but certainly on the rise, and they finished in 11th after the dressage on 26.9 penalties. Great crowd there for Australia, members of the Equestrian Life Aachen Tour. It was still quite early in the morning and they were full of cheer. Kevin certainly looked happy with his test. Big smiles for the Clip My Horse cameras. And last to go in the teams event for Australia was none other than Andrew Hoy and Vasily de Lassos. Andrew describes this horse as being a horse of a lifetime, and they are certainly an amazing combination. Andrew's been riding the horse since 2017, and they were amazing at the World Equestrian Games in 2018, finishing just out of the medals in 4th place and being part of the team that qualified Australia for the eventing at the Tokyo Olympics. This horse is still really quite young, only 10 years old, and showing all the promise to be an amazing horse for Australia. With Andrew, if he can get to the Tokyo Olympics, that will be his 8th Olympics for Australia, which is quite amazing. And as a combination, this pair looked to be absolutely in sync in all the phases, and they were in 18th place after the dressage. They scored 28.3. Andrew certainly looking really happy with Vasily de Lassos, and definitely getting the cheers from the Australians in the crowd.
Vasily de Lassos and Andrew Hoy for the Australian team. Thank you. And the score at H 26.9, at C 28.8, and at B 29.2, and a total of 28.3 for Vasily de Lassos and Andrew Hoy from Australia.
And on to the show jumping phase. Once again, it was Isabel English and Feldal Mouse first out for the Australians. At Aachen in the eventing competition, the dressage and the show jumping are run on the same day, with the cross-country phase on day 2. Isabel and Feldal Mouse are a really consistent combination in the show jumping phase. They rarely take a rail. Feldal Mouse is a very careful horse, and Isabel has had a very long partnership with him. They've actually been together for 12 years, since Isabel herself was only 12 years old and Mouse was just 5. They've moved up through the levels, firstly in Australia, right up to the 4-star level, where they competed their first 4-star, or now 5-star, at Adelaide back in 2013. They moved to Germany in 2016 and based with Michael Jung for a few years before Isabel moved to England in 2018. And this combination competed at badminton horse trials earlier this year, jumping clear of penalties around the cross country, just picking up time penalties, which was a super first performance at badminton. And they're actually entered in Burghley horse trials to commence later this week. So a big year for Isabel, with badminton, Aachen on the Australian team and Burghley all in the same year. So just the one rail for Isabel, a really good round that moved her up to 29th place after the show jumping. And here we see Chris Burton on Quality Purdy. Chris rode Polystar in the teams event, and with Polystar he had the one rail, but now here as an individual on Quality Purdy, a beautiful 13-year-old mare. He had a super show jumping round. He was clear of show jumping penalties. Chris is a regular competitor in open show jumping. Back when he was in Australia, he competed in show jumping, and he also competes still at the higher heights. He's show jumping young stallion called Calibre Royale at the metre 40 height at present, and you can see how comfortable Chris is out here in the show jumping. So this clear round for Chris and Quality Purdy meant that they moved up to 9th place after the show jumping, heading into cross country, riding as individuals.
Ja, so ist es auch hier mit 27 Punkten.
Andrew Hoy and Vasily de Lassos had a super clear round in the show jumping phase of the competition. This was described by the Equestrian Life Aachen Tour members as being the round of the day, and it was actually the fastest show jumping round of this phase of the competition, and it not only moved Andrew up from 18th to 10th heading into the cross country, it also put the Australian team right in the mix and in a strong position at the end of the show jumping phase. Sit back and enjoy.
10 beste Ergebnis. Andrew Hoy, Vasily de Lassos.
Kevin McNabb and Willunga were the last combination in the show jumping phase for Australia. Unfortunately, it just wasn't their day in the show jumping. They took 3 rails down, which moved them down to 30th place on a score of 38.9 after the show jumping and heading into the cross-country phase. Moving on to the cross-country phase, and it's Isabel English and Feldau Mouse. They were the first out for the Australian team. They were also trailblazers for the cross-country phase. All eyes on Isabel and Feldau Mouse to see what they will do through some of the direct options around this track. It's quite a tough track and some tricky combinations, particularly towards the end of the course. And the Equestrian Life tour group were able to walk the cross-country course with Lucinda Green, who described 21 ABC, which was the last combination before you enter the main arena at the end of the track, as being incredibly tricky. And as you can see, we do get to watch Isabel through the whole course, being the first rider out. She has the lion's share of the camera time, and she is absolutely on fire with Feldau Mouse, and they are so confident and take everything in their stride. You can see she's come out of the start box with absolute foot down. She's not wasting any time out there, and this combination are just showing the strength of their partnership. 12 years together, having come up through the levels and living the dream over now in Europe, competing at some of these major events. It's very exciting for Australians back at home to watch just how far Isabel English and Feldau Mouse have come. He's not a big horse. He's only 15 3 hands, and he's actually Connemara pony crossed with thoroughbreds, so a little different to some of the modern warm blood cross sport horses that we're seeing in the sport, but a very popular cross, the Connemara thoroughbred over in Ireland. And this horse looks like he was just put on the earth to run and jump cross-country fences. Early in his career, he was quite naughty, and Isabel will describe how she often fell off, even just riding at home. But these days, he's absolutely a master of this sport, and at 17 years old, still looks full of fitness and keenness. As we can see, Isabel now coming down to one of the influential jumps on the course. This is the Rolex Water, and this skinny apex there did cause quite a few issues on quite a sharp turn, but Isabel and Feldau Mouse are just jumping out of rhythm and just doing such an amazing job as they travel around this track.
Fehler geht's für Isabel Englisch und Ferdinand Maas. Fehlerfrei. Bis 14.
Eine nächste Aufgabe von Konzentration. Das ist sehr lang komplex.
Alles wunderbar gelaufen bisher. Und es geht weiter über 16 fehlerfrei. Nach wie vor.
And with just a minute and a half left on the clock, we are coming towards the end of Isabel English and Feldau Mouse's time on cross country. This is a super round, and you can see that Isabel and Feldau Mouse are still looking super through all the combinations. The horse is fit and full of running. Those that read Equestrian Life magazine will have read Heath Ryan in his Ryan's Rave column talking about the top 30 Australian combinations to watch in the lead up to the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, and previously Isabel and Feldau Mouse had just snuck into the top 30, but as you'll read in issue 50, which is on sale this week, on the basis of this cracking round at Aachen, she has shot up Heath's rankings quite considerably. And they're coming towards now this last tricky combination before they enter the stadium to finish the course, and this is the combination that Lucinda Green described as being particularly tricky, and you can see here it's a skinny apex and then two angled brushes. Wow, straight through and looking completely comfortable there. That's actually where Laura Collette, who was in the lead after the dressage and show jumping for Great Britain, had an issue in that combination that knocked her right out of contention, and yet the trailblazer Isabel English for Australia just absolutely taking it in her stride on the wonderful Feldau Mouse. What a ride. Everyone from Australia was just so proud out there watching her go around with such maturity, coming into the final water and looking 100%. Course doesn't let up even at the end here. Coming in now in this main stadium final sequence, there's quite a tough skinny related distance to an apex, and even the final fence is vast, and over they go into some time. But just such a super round for Isabel and Feldau Mouse, pathfinders, trailblazers for Australia, and they finished in 18th place with 12.8 time penalties. A wonderful first score on the board for Australia in the team's competition. The next rider on course for the Australians cross country was Chris Burton on Polystar. Chris riding both Polystar in the teams and Quality Purdy as an individual. Will be able to see parts of his round on each horse. With the top placings at Aachen, they run in reverse order, which makes for a very exciting competition coming into the final placings, as the horses and riders have completed the dressage and show jumping phases already. It does get quite hectic out there on course, with a lot of the top combinations going around at the same time, on course at the same moments, and you can see here Chris is really covering a lot of ground on this horse, Polystar. This is a very successful combination together. Chris and Polystar won at Saumur earlier this year, and in so doing have qualified for the Tokyo Olympics. So 14-year-old gelding Polystar, very experienced now with Chris, and disappointing for them to have had a rail the day before, but looking really fantastic out on the cross-country course. This combination went clear cross-country, just adding a little bit of time. Just in the cross-country phase, there were 4 time penalties for Chris and Polystar. And on to Kevin McNabb. We don't have a lot of footage of Kevin because there was so much going on at the same time that this is all that they could capture. But Kevin also jumped clear around the cross-country. He was in 16th place at the end of the competition with 9.6 time penalties. And Andrew Hoy and Vasily de Lassos was the final combination out for Australia. So Chris and Polystar finished in 9th with 4 time penalties. Kevin and Wollonga finished in 16th with 9.6. Earlier we saw Isabel, who finished in 18th on 51.3. And as the final rider for Australia, it must have been a great feeling for Andrew Hoy to go out knowing that all of his team members had jumped clear ahead of him. He came into the cross-country in 10th place after his super show jumping round, and you can see this horse just absolutely loves his job. He's always got his ears pricked and searching for the next fence, and this is just a real masterclass in riding from Andrew Hoy and this super jumping horse, Vasily de Lassos. They had a wonderful clear round, just 1.2 time penalties, nearly making it home in time, but that was good enough to move from 10th place to finish 5th overall. A really outstanding performance from this really consistent combination in all the phases. So overall for Australia, all the riders were clear. Cross country, just a little bit of time for all of them, but a really strong performance to finish 3rd overall in the Nations Cup event. And Chris Burton riding as an individual for Australia on Quality Purdy. This mare very keen to get going, and you can see here why Chris has a reputation for being one of the fastest cross-country riders in the world. He really doesn't waste any time out on cross-country. He can go extremely fast without looking like he's in a hurry. Always rides tight lines to fences and gets the job done. In this combination, Chris and Quality Purdy were one of only 3 to finish inside the time on cross country. The others were Ingrid Klimke and Michael Jung. And he was the only combination to finish on his dressage score for the competition. So Michael Jung and Ingrid Klimke both had a rail in the show jumping, but Chris and Quality Purdy, only combination in the whole competition at Aachen to finish on their dressage score, and ultimately in 3rd place overall. They finished on a score of 27 penalties. As an individual, that didn't count towards our Nations Cup score, but wonderful to see Chris and Quality Purdy finish in 3rd place. And being one of the higher ranked riders coming into the cross country, he was towards the end of the field to go cross country, and it was getting quite slippery out on course. You can see just here the mare just loses her footing a little bit, but Chris keeps the rhythm and the forward momentum and manages to come through in one piece. Very keen mare and covers the ground beautifully. Just a really good jumping horse, and very exciting to watch this combination as we head towards Tokyo.
Jetzt auf dem Hügel über Hanging Lock, davor fehlerfrei über die Tränke und auch über Nummer 18. Ohne Fehler kommt jetzt zum SAP-Komplex.
And here's the champion, Ingrid Klimke. The crowds absolutely love their German hero. She is amazing. Everyone that went on the Equestrian Life Tour just spoke of how wonderful she was, always smiling, whatever she was doing. Not only did she finish as the winner overall here at Aachen in the eventing, she also competed in the Grand Prix dressage with Franciscus. She competed in the Ride and Drive Challenge as well, and just seems to never run out of enthusiasm and energy. She actually competed in the Grand Prix freestyle dressage after this competition, after the eventing, so endless energy. And you can see this crowd, it's just huge. They actually have to lock the gates because there's so many people that want to come in and watch the cross country, and the roar as she enters the stadium is quite amazing. This was the fastest round of the day cross country. And there we have it, the winners at Aachen 2019, Ingrid Klimke on home turf. She's absolutely delighted. She loves this horse, and what an exciting and thrilling event to watch.
Ergebnis von gestern von 24,7 Punkten. Auf jeden Fall hat sie Rang 3 und wir schauen gleich mal, was die anderen machen. 6 minutes and 53 seconds, a clear round and the
Thank you for watching tonight's video recap with Equestrian Life. We'll see you next time.